The alien ship landed quietly under the dark sky. It didn't roar or shake the earth, glided like a dream. Every soldier in the human base stood still, weapons ready, but when the door of the ship opened, no one expected her. She stepped out slowly, hips swaying, silver skin glowing softly in the lights. Her eyes were deep purple, her lips full and calm. She wore a dress made of shimmering threads that moved like liquid light. Her name was Valara, high-ranking diplomat of the planet Evelon. She smiled sweetly at the crowd of human officers. Everyone looked stunned. Some even forgot to breathe. Valara had been trained to charm, to seduce, to break walls with her looks alone. But her target wasn't just any man. He was Captain Duran Hale. She turned toward him, scanning the crowd. And there he was. Rough face, arms crossed, eyes cold as steel. He didn't blink when their eyes met. He didn't smile, didn't flinch, didn't stare at her body like the others. Valera's heart twitched, just a little. She walked toward him slowly, graceful as a queen. "Captain Hale," she said with a soft voice. "It's a pleasure." He nodded once, short and sharp. "Follow me." Briefing rooms this way. That was it. No compliment, no reaction. It was like she wasn't even beautiful. Valera's smile held, but inside, she was curious. Even annoyed, inside the briefing room, Earth's high commanders sat at a long table. They offered her drinks, warm smiles, and tried not to stare. She played her role perfectly, smiling, speaking, charming them all. Except Duran, who leaned in the corner, arms still crossed, always watching. When the meeting ended, she moved toward him again. "You don't like aliens, Captain?" she asked lightly. He looked at her for a moment. "I don't like games. Who says I'm playing?" she whispered, taking a small step closer. "Everyone on your ship wears armor," he said, stepping back. "You wear a dress." That sentence hit her like cold water. Valara watched him walk out the room without another word. She stood there, breath caught, a strange feeling blooming in her chest. Was it anger or interest? Back on her ship that night, she touched the small pendant on her neck. "Log note," she said. "Day 1. Captain Hale is unusual, resistant to contact, but I will break him," she added, after a pause, "eventually." But even as she said those words, she felt something else. Her hands trembled slightly, and for a second, the pendant glowed red. She frowned, tapping it. No response. She felt warm, too warm. She checked the room temperature. It was normal. She took a deep breath and calmed herself. Perhaps Earth's atmosphere was affecting her body strangely. Still, she didn't report it. This mission had to succeed, no matter what. The next day, she tried again. This time, she wore a dark suit, professional, respectful. She met Duran outside the base, near the training field. "You liked silence, Captain?" she asked as she walked beside him. "I like honesty," he replied, without looking at her. Valara felt a pulse inside her neck, like a thump under her skin. What was wrong with her? Why was she reacting this way? Training never failed before, not on generals, not on kings. Yet here she was, chasing a man who acted like she didn't exist. Later that evening, while standing by the Earth Garden, she caught Darren standing alone by the fence. She approached, slow and quiet. "You don't trust me," she said softly. "Nope," he said, without turning. "But I haven't done anything wrong." "Not yet," he answered. Valara clenched her jaw, holding her pride in place. "You think I'm the danger?" she said. "But maybe you are." That made him look at her, just briefly. "Maybe," he said. And then he walked away again. That night, as Valara lay in her bed, she felt a strange warmth again. This time, stronger. Her hands trembled, and for a second she thought she saw a blue light beneath her skin. She sat up quickly, breathing fast, whispering, "This, isn't normal." Outside her ship, in the shadows. A silent drone recorded everything. It sent the data back to an unknown source. And in the dark, a voice whispered, "She's reacting faster than expected. He may be the trigger, Valera." Didn't know it yet, but something had already begun inside her, and no amount of training could stop it now. She came to Earth with a mission, but fate had another plan. The early sun peeked through the clouds, casting long shadows across the base. Valera stood on the observation deck, arms crossed, her silver skin dull under the gray light. Sleep had not come easily. Her thoughts refused to rest, every time. She closed her eyes. She saw his face. Not because it was handsome, though it was in a rough way, but because it was unreadable, cold, distant, and unlike anything she had trained for. She had been briefed on humans for years, their cultures. Weaknesses, love of flattery, their hunger for approval, but Captain Dayron Hale broke every rule. He didn't look at her like a man looks at a woman. He looked at her like a soldier looks at a puzzle. She found him in the engine yard that morning, wiping grease from his hands. "You avoid me," she said, without pretense. He didn't even flinch. "I stay busy with machines." "They don't lie," he said, and walked past her. She turned to follow, walking alongside him. "You think I'm lying?" He paused just long enough to say, "I think you're hiding." That struck her deeper than it should have, because maybe he wasn't wrong. Inside, her body still pulsed with heat. Twice now, she had seen a shimmer under her skin. The second time, it had spread across her lower stomach like a faint blue web. She had hidden it with makeup gel, but the warmth grew stronger. Every hour, her orders had been simple. Charm him, gain his trust, influence him. But how could she charm a man who didn't care to be charmed? She tried humor, directness, even silence. Nothing worked. Nothing cracked his shell. At lunch, she chose a seat near him in the mess hall. A few officers tried to sit with her, but she waved them off. He ate quietly. Eyes on his tray, she picked up a fork and poked at the unfamiliar earth food. "Do you eat like this every day?" she asked, trying for casual. "More or less," he replied, not looking up. "It smells strange. That's the protein bricks. They're not for aliens." She smiled. "I'm tougher than I look." "Doesn't matter what you look like," he said calmly, finally glancing at her. Her smile faded just a little, and she realized she was breathing harder than before. That night, she sat alone in her quarters. Lights dimmed, hand on her stomach. The warmth had moved lower, and her breath came in short waves. She ran a scan using the ship's medical interface, but it refused to give a clear reading. Error messages flashed, blinking red and then vanishing. She growled softly. Frustrated, "I've had no physical contact," she told the system. "No exposure. No bond." No, but she stopped speaking because something inside her pulsed in answer. Like a heartbeat not her own. In her mirror, she stared at her reflection. She still looked perfect, every detail in place. But her eyes, once calm, now held something else. Uncertainty. Maybe fear, maybe curiosity. She left her ship and found herself walking. The night was cold, air crisp, stars blinking overhead. She didn't know where she was going until she found him again, alone on the outer wall. Looking at the dark hills beyond, "I need to ask you something," she said quietly. He didn't move, just said, "Go ahead. Do you really not feel anything?" There was a long silence between them. Then he turned and looked her dead in the eyes. "I feel things. I just don't trust them." "Why?" "Because feelings get people killed." The wind blew gently, carrying the scent of earth trees and distant rain. Valera stepped closer. Not for seduction this time, but something else. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said. He nodded once. "But someone is." Before she could ask what he meant, a distant hum broke the silence. She turned fast, eyes scanning the trees. A small shape zipped through the air, a probe, Not. Human Duran reacted faster than expected, drawing a small blaster and firing. The drone sparked and spun, falling to the ground. Valera stared at it. Then at him. You knew. I suspected. How long has it been watching me? Since the day you landed, he said, holstering his weapon. Her hands shook as she bent beside the drone. It was made of alien metal, not Evelon tech, but close. Someone doesn't. Want this mission to succeed? She whispered. No. Duran said behind her, voice low. Someone wants to see what happens if it does. She stood slowly, her mind spinning. Everything felt heavier now. The warmth in her stomach pulsed. Again, almost. Awake, and for the first time since she arrived on Earth, Valera felt something she hadn't expected. Not power, not control, but fear. She was no longer sure who was using who, or what had already begun inside her. And as the stars watched, quietly from above, a change was taking place. One that no one, not even Valera, could stop now. The rain came down harder than expected. Cold and wild, wind roared like an animal, and the emergency shelter lights flickered red. Valera stood at the edge of the landing deck, soaked, arms crossed tightly across her chest. She was told to wait. Inside, but she didn't listen. She needed to see if he would come, and he did. Of course, Darren Hale, wearing nothing but his soaked jacket and that usual serious face. You'll freeze out here, he said simply. I don't get cold easily, she replied. Water dripping from her lashes. You're still shivering? She didn't answer. But she didn't argue either. Minutes later, they stood inside the emergency shelter, small. Square bunker on the hill. No power, no heat. Only one old blanket, one lamp, and one cot. Valera raised an eyebrow. One bed. Darren nodded, drying his hands with the blanket. We can share the floor. She tilted her head. Smirking slightly. You still think I'm dangerous? I know you are, he replied. Not smiling. That should have irritated her. But it didn't. It made her heart thump harder. She sat cross-legged on the cold floor. Watching him carefully, he moved with caution. Always alert, like a soldier expecting an ambush. And yet, he didn't push her away. Not tonight. The storm outside raged louder. And inside the small shelter, the air grew tighter. He sat across from her, back against the wall, breathing slow. Valera stared at the flickering lamp between them. Shadows. Dancing on his face, her voice came out low, softer than she intended. Why haven't you reported me yet? He didn't answer at first. Then finally, I don't trust you. Then why not expose me? Because I don't trust them either. That silence between them was no longer sharp. It was thick, heavy, like the air before lightning. Valera leaned closer, just slightly, eyes locked on his. Her voice was barely a whisper. Are you afraid? Of me, Duran? He stared back, completely still. I'm afraid of what's happening to you. Something inside her jolted at those words. He saw it. He noticed the change she had kept hidden from her own people, the blue lines that pulsed. Under her skin, the warmth that never cooled. She opened her mouth to speak, but a wave of heat crashed through her suddenly, and she collapsed forward into his arms. For a moment, everything slowed. She felt his arms catch her, his warmth so close, his scent earthy and clean. She wanted to speak. But all that came out was a breath. Then a glow spread from her chest. Soft blue, lighting the room. Darren gently lowered her to the floor. Eyes wide, but calm. Valera. What's happening to you? She shook her head, eyes wild, lips trembling. I don't know. She gasped. It started after I met you. She gripped the front of his jacket, holding on like it was the only real thing in the world. I haven't touched anyone, Darren, I swear. But something is inside me. He didn't speak. Didn't run. He simply stayed beside her as the glow faded slowly. She curled up on the cold floor, chest rising and falling like crashing waves, and in the silence, the storm outside sounded smaller. Hours passed. Or maybe just minutes. Time no longer moved normally. Valera finally sat up, weak, skin pale, eyes tired. But she felt something new, now something living. It wasn't just warmth anymore. It had rhythm. She placed her hand on her belly and felt the beat. Not her heartbeat, another, softer, but real. She turned her head slowly toward Duran, and for the first time, her voice broke. "Something's growing inside me." He looked at her for a long time, no words coming, and then so slowly she almost didn't notice he moved closer. He rested his hand gently over hers. His voice was firm, low. "Whatever this is, we'll face it." She blinked, stunned by the word we. No one had ever said that to her, not even her own kind. Her entire mission had been about power, manipulation, control. But here, in this tiny shelter with a man who refused to be played, she found something else, something fragile and terrifyingly real. And outside, the rain kept falling, washing the earth clean, but inside, something had already changed forever. The mirror lied to her. Valera stared at her reflection, breath held, skin flawless as always, eyes calm. But it was false. She could feel the lie pulsing under the surface. The blue shimmer beneath her skin wasn't fading anymore. It was spreading. She touched her face, her neck, her belly. It was warm to warm. She whispered to herself, "I looked fine. But I'm not." And the mirror stayed silent. Every day, she wore her diplomat mask, confident, collected, charming. She walked the halls of the human base like a star. Men watched her, women whispered, officials smiled, but none of them saw what Duran had seen that night. None of them knew she woke each morning trembling, heart racing, stomach fluttering, not from nerves, but from life. Something was growing inside her. Something that hadn't asked permission. Something that was part of her, and maybe not. The Earth's doctor she visited said her health was perfect. No infection, no virus, nothing they could measure. But her own ship's scans still blinked red when she tried to read her vitals. Even the machine didn't understand her anymore, and yet she kept it secret because if her own people found out, they'd remove her. Study her, terminate the unknown and the humans. They'd call her a threat. Only Duran knew, and he hadn't told anyone. She didn't ask him why, but maybe she already knew. He was the only one who saw her, not just the mission, not just the body, not just the alien. That evening, as the sky turned orange, she sat outside the base on a steel bench, watching human children play near the fences. Their laughter was strange, high-pitched, but beautiful. A young girl ran past her, barefoot and wild, laughing with full joy. Valera placed a hand on her stomach without thinking. What would her child sound like? Would it laugh like that? Cry? Speak in her tongue? Or his? She didn't even know what the child was. And still her heart warmed in a way that scared her more than war ever had. Darren found her sitting there, silent, eyes distant. He didn't speak right away, just stood nearby. She finally asked, "Did you tell anyone?" "No," he said quietly. "Did you think I would?" "I don't know," she replied. "I don't know anything anymore." He sat down beside her, his arm close but not touching hers. "I've seen a lot of strange things," he said, "but never this." She turned to him, voice shaky. "I didn't do anything. I didn't even touch you that way. I don't understand how it happened." "I believe you," he said simply. That shook her more than if he had doubted her, because belief was rare and precious. She lowered her voice, almost ashamed. "I was trained to seduce, to break men, to bend them to our mission." "I know," he replied, still calm. "But you didn't bend." "No," he said. "Because I saw something in you they probably didn't want anyone to see." She blinked, unsure. "What?" He looked at her, dead serious. "You were lonely." The wind carried her silence far into the sky. Lonely, that word pierced deeper than any weapon. Because it was true, she had always been the weapon, the tool, the face of her people, but never anyone's someone. That night, she returned to her ship alone, inside her room. The lights flickered as she passed. The sensors scanned her without permission. Doors opened before she touched them. Something inside her was affecting the systems now. She was changing, and everything around her knew it. She lay on her bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Her hand rested gently on her lower stomach. She whispered, "What are you?" And for the first time, something moved. It wasn't a sharp pain, not fear, but a soft flutter, like wings underwater, and it answered in its own way. A second heartbeat, slow and small, but strong. Valera bit her lip to keep from crying out. Tears rolled down her cheeks silently, not from pain. Not even fear this time, but from knowing she wasn't alone anymore. She was still a diplomat, still part of a secret mission, but now she was also something else, a vessel for the unknown. A bridge between two worlds that were never meant to meet, and far above her ship, beyond human radar. A cloaked satellite blinked, recording every signal, and a voice across the stars whispered into darkness. She is progressing. The hybrid will reach full phase soon. Prepare the extraction. Valera didn't hear it. She just lay there in the dark, eyes wet, lips trembling, and somewhere inside her, the child of two enemies dreamed quietly for the first time. She collapsed in front of the control panel, gasping for air. The lights on her ship flickered red. One by one, as if the ship itself was panicking too. Her hands shook violently, and the veins in her wrists glowed blue. It had never been this strong before. This heat, this pressure, this presence, it was no longer hiding inside her. It was pushing to be known. Valera crawled across the floor to the emergency medical bay. She activated the scan with trembling fingers, sweat dripping down her back. But again, the same result flashed. On the screen, unable to identify entity, biological status, unknown, containment recommended, she whispered. No, 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 not containment. She slammed the console, trying to override the protocol. But the ship began the countdown for a stasis lock. They would come for her if she didn't shut it down now. She reached into the panel and ripped out the core wire with her bare hand. The system sparked, went black, and finally stopped speaking. Silence filled the room, and only her ragged breathing remained. Then, the soft sound again, a second heartbeat inside her. Steady, patient, waiting. She wrapped her arms around her stomach and rocked slowly. "I'm not letting them take you," she whispered. "Not them. Not anyone." The next morning, she stood before the Earth medical staff with a fake smile. She told them she had suffered a minor neurological pulse due to atmospheric pressure. They believed her, gave her a vitamin injection, and reminded her to rest. No scans, no questions. Humans were so easy to lie to. Except one. Darren met her outside the lab. Arms folded, expression unreadable as always. "You look pale," he said. "You look like you never sleep." She replied, "I don't." "Then we match." They walked side by side down the hall, both pretending everything was normal. But she knew he felt the same shift in the air that she did. Something was building between them, around them, inside her. And it was only a matter of time before it burst open. In the conference room later, she stood with Earth's generals and alien ambassadors, all pretending to negotiate peace. While their eyes spoke of weapons and control, Valera spoke her part, made her promises. But every word she said felt further from who she was becoming. Because the truth kept rising like fire in her throat. She excused herself halfway through the meeting and rushed to the bathroom. She locked the door, fell to her knees, and bit down hard to keep from screaming. Her stomach burned from the inside. Her skin lit up in soft glowing lines again, and this time she saw her reflection change. just for a second. Her pupils turned into narrow slits, alien and primal, and her breath fogged the mirror. Though the room was cold, she stared at herself. In horror, this isn't me. What are you turning me into? A knock came at the door, sharp and heavy. It's me, Darren's voice said, low but firm. Open it. She didn't move, frozen in fear. Valera, he said again, I know you're in pain. Slowly, she opened the door, and he stepped. In eyes scanning her face, he didn't react to the glow. Didn't step back. Instead, he reached into his coat and handed her a folded datapad. What's this? She asked, voice still shaking, something I found in the base's unfiltered transmissions. She opened it, tanned. The breath left her lungs. Surveillance images. Of her ship. Of her medical scans. Someone in the base had been secretly transmitting her data off-world, coordinates, orders. Her pregnancy wasn't just discovered, was being monitored. She looked up at him, horrified. They know. They've known for days, he said. Why haven't they come for me? Because they're waiting for it to grow. She sat down slowly on the floor, unable to stand anymore. Her hands trembled around the datapad. I don't even know what it is, she whispered. Is it a child? A weapon? A mistake? Darren knelt in front of her, placing a hand gently on hers. It's not a mistake, he said, because you still care. Her eyes watered, lips trembling. You should report me. I'm a risk. I'm a soldier. He said, not a monster. She nodded slowly, whispering, they'll come soon, won't they? They're already here, he replied, but they don't know I'm helping you. A small light blinked on his communicator, silent but urgent. We don't have much time. He said, standing up, you said you'd face this with me. She said, her voice barely a breath. He looked back at her and nodded. I meant it, that night. Valera packed what little she could carry. Inside her ship, the glow from her skin now lit the walls. And inside her, the heartbeat was stronger, louder, undeniable. She wasn't just carrying something unknown anymore. She was carrying a message. One that both humans and aliens feared. A child that wasn't part of the plan, but might be the only chance for peace. And far away, on a black moon with no name, a council of shadowed figures watched her escape in silence. One of them finally spoke. The host is leaving. Send the retrieval squad. They didn't use the front gate. They didn't say goodbye. They just vanished into the storm with nothing but a stolen hoverbike. A half-filled pack, and the unborn secrets still growing inside her. The sky above them pulsed with silent satellites, but none tracked them yet, not yet. Valera gripped Darren's waist tightly as he drove through the wild lands beyond the base. She didn't ask where they were going, because even if he said it out loud, it wouldn't matter. The only place she needed to be was away. She had never run from anything before. She had faced warlords, liars, double agents, and monsters in suits. But this escapes felt like her first real fight. Not against weapons or politics, but against control. Wind tore at her hair. Rain soaked her skin, but her body remained hot inside. The pulse in her belly was stronger than ever, steady. Alive, aware, she felt it react to the speed, the danger. The rhythm of Darren's heartbeat beneath her hands. It was like the thing inside her knew it was being hunted. They reached an abandoned spaceport just before midnight, a ghost of a place, rusted and forgotten. Daron pulled the hoverbike behind a broken shuttle and pulled out a small beacon. This place still have power? She asked quietly. Only enough for one jump, he said. We're not staying. She didn't speak. Just followed him into the cracked structure. Dust rose from their steps like ghosts returning. In the control room, Darren set down a black case, opened it, and pulled out a silver cube. The moment it lit up, Valera's skin shimmered blue again, this time brighter than ever. You okay? he asked, turning fast. She placed a hand over her belly and nodded once. "It's not pain," she whispered. "It's growing again." He didn't ask more. He just turned back and activated the cube. A holographic ship formed in the air above them, sleek, small, unregistered. "Whose is that?" Valera asked. "It's ours," he said. "Now?" She didn't question him. She had stopped asking how he knew these things. Daron was more than a soldier. More than a man with a grudge. He was a man prepared. But while the cube hummed and the ship prepared itself, far above, someone was already watching. A black dot blinked into view in low orbit. Its crew had no name, no flag, no conscience, only orders. Retrieve the hybrid. Eliminate the man. Valera felt it before the alarms screamed. A sharp twist in her stomach, a jolt in her spine. She turned her head just as the sky above the dome turned white with falling fire. "They're here," she said. Daron didn't waste time. He slammed his hand on the cube and triggered early launch. "Get to the ship," he said. "What about you?" "I'm right behind you." She ran, the child inside her kicking for the first time. The door to the hidden launch bay opened just in time for her to leap inside. Daron followed, but not fast enough. An explosion ripped open the far wall. Heat and metal blasted through the air. He hit the ground hard, groaning. Valera screamed his name, crawling toward him, but he waved her off. "Get on the ship. I'm not leaving without you. You will if you want that child to live." Another blast shook the building. She turned toward the ship, then back at him, torn apart inside. The child moved again, faster. Urgent, and she finally understood. They weren't just running from enemies. They were running toward purpose. She pulled him up with strength that surprised even herself. Together, they stumbled into the ship. Doors sealed behind them, just as plasma shots slammed into the hull. The ship's AI spoke in her mind. Destination. Valera didn't hesitate. Anywhere they can't follow. Stars stretched into lines as the jump began, and behind them, the forgotten spaceport turned to ash. Inside the ship, silence returned, except for one sound, the heartbeat, stronger. Now echoing softly through her whole body. Daron heard it too, and for the first time. His eyes weren't guarded, they were full of wonder. "It's alive," he whispered. She nodded, breath shaky. "It's ours." The galaxy watched their escape, but no one, not the hunters, not the governments, not the secret councils, could predict what would happen next. Because Valera wasn't just a diplomat anymore, and Daron wasn't just a soldier. They were protectors now of something new, something impossible, something that refused to be erased. And somewhere in deep space, the child inside her dreamed again, and for the first time, the stars listened. The child was born in silence. No doctors, no machines, no bright hospital lights, just a dim cabin tucked inside a hidden asteroid ring. Stars drifted slowly outside the curved window, and Valera screamed only once, then breathed. Daron caught the child in his arms, trembling. He had faced war, watched soldiers die, pulled people from fire. But nothing had ever made his hands shake like this. A child not fully human, not fully alien, warm and real, and blinking at him. Valera reached for her baby with tears already sliding down her cheeks. Not from pain, but from something far bigger. She had imagined this moment in fear for weeks. Would the child be strange, deformed, cold? But no, she was small and soft and beautiful. Her skin shimmered with faint silver and blue. Her eyes opened slowly, bright violet. Just like her mother's, Daron sat beside Valera and placed the child gently in her arms. "She's perfect," he said, voice barely a whisper. Valera smiled weakly, her fingers brushing over tiny fingers. "She feels like hope." They didn't name her right away. How could they? There were no names for what she was. She wasn't just a child. She was a message. to bridge between enemies, born of trust, not politics, not war. For 3 days, they stayed hidden. The ship floated silently through the asteroid field, camouflaged and forgotten. Valera healed slowly, sleeping with the baby curled close. Darren watched over them both like a silent shield. Sometimes he held the child at night, whispering to her softly. "Your mother saved my life," he said. "Once, but I think you're going to save hers too." But peace never lasts. On the 4th day, the warning light blinked red. Unregistered vessels, 5 of them sliding into the asteroid ring. They had found them. Valera was still too weak to fight. Darren placed her and the baby in the emergency escape pod hidden beneath the floor. "I'll lead them away," he said, strapping on his weapons. "You won't survive alone," Valera said, voice cracking. "I'm not planning to win," he said, just to buy time. She reached up and grabbed his collar, pulling him close. "You promised we'd face this together." He stared into her eyes, then nodded slowly. "Then we go together." She held the baby tight as they climbed into the pilot seats. The main ship roared to life, engines flaring. Darren took the controls while Valera locked shields into place. The baby slept through it all, completely calm. The enemy ships surrounded them, fast, dark, silent, deadly. A voice echoed across the comms. Cold and commanding, "Return the hybrid. The adult carriers will be terminated painlessly." Valera didn't respond. She reached out and turned off the communication feed. "We are not carriers," she whispered. "We are parents." Darren punched the engines and broke through the asteroid belt. The enemy fired blinding flashes, lit up the stars. But Darren dodged like a man with nothing left to fear. Missiles chased them, but Valera hacked their signals mid-flight. Her child slept through it all, heart beating like a steady drum in Valera's chest. One of the enemy ships crashed into an asteroid, torn apart by its own speed. Another lost its signal and spun into darkness, but there were still 3 behind them. And the ship's fuel was burning fast. Valera turned to Darren. "There's only one way left." He looked at her, already knowing. "The wormhole? It'll scatter our signal for years. It might tear the ship apart. But they won't follow," she said. "They can't." Darren nodded, setting coordinates. He reached out and took Valera's hand. They held on as the wormhole opened, bright, swirling, alive. It wasn't an escape, it was a leap, and then silence. The ship drifted in a blue void, lightless, timeless. They didn't know how long they floated. Minutes, hours, maybe days. But when they finally emerged, the stars were different, new, unfamiliar. But calm. They had made it. Broken, bruised, but alive. And more than that, they were together. Valera pressed the baby to her chest and kissed her soft silver forehead. Darren exhaled for the first time in hours, wiping sweat from his brow. The ship was damaged, but still flying. The war behind them was still burning. But out in this untouched part of space, they could begin again. Valera turned to Darren, voice soft. "Let's name her." He smiled. "You first." She looked down at the baby, glowing faintly in the dark cabin, and whispered, "Nova, a new light, a new future." Born from 2 enemies who refused to follow the rules of war, and somewhere far behind them, the galaxy searched for a child that no longer belonged to one world, because Nova wasn't just theirs now. She belonged to the future, and it had already begun.